I need to understand that we are, again, the tech enthusiasts or the visionaries of remote work. So something that progressive firms like IBM have done is that they decided that, okay, one of the important things that we need. All right, so yeah, I'm one of the ones that come from South America via San Francisco. So I'm here to talk a little bit about what people are doing in large firms on scaling innovation, scaling design thinking and agile methods across locations. And who here works for a company of more than 1,000 employees? Okay, small sample size, probably under 10%. And I agree with Andres in the beginning that everybody is, in a way, working one way or the other remote, and we're teaching this to large firms. So Mural allows people to do the kind of work that generally rely on a lot of sticky notes, whiteboards, innovation work together, and then we transcribe it to the digital format, and people then can do it remotely. And as Andres was saying, it's one of the most challenging things to do remotely, is high bandwidth type of innovation work. So we, as a company, are 80 people. Some of us are in locations. We have an office in San Francisco, we have an office in Buenos Aires, and we also have a virtual office of remote guys in 15 locations or something like that. So we, from the beginning, embrace this hybrid team structure, which is very complicated to manage because we have a lot of microcultures in a way, in addition to the company culture. So we embrace this, and it's also by design. I mean, we talked about going all remote, and the reality is that we also want to drink our champagne and embrace the fact that, again, in large firms, it's generally more of a mixed environment where some people in an office, some people in another office, some people remote, some people traveling, and so forth. So we try to practice that way. But in any case, I'm not here to talk about us and how we do it. We are lucky to work with teams, and then teams of teams and whole companies also on helping these guys deploy their design thinking, agile, visual methods. And we believe that we are a nice part, a key part of the digital workspace. So people in financial services, people in consulting services, people in software and internet, all participate in online. And we also have small firms, right? So Zapier is a customer, Atlassian is a customer, not so small anymore, Automatic and so on. How we got here is important because I also started as a mobile CEO. I wasn't remote, I was living mostly in American Airlines, and we had a video games company in the past, video games company for Facebook. We first built video games for large brands, and then we learned to build our own games, and we published through Facebook. 20 million players in that video game in 2010 called Bola. And after that, we got acquired by a company called Playdom, and then after that, I got acquired by a company called Disney. And while at Disney, I was also still a mobile, not CEO anymore, I was a creative director after the acquisition, and I started designing a game about emotions. And the game about emotions, I was using PowerPoint to collect stuff, because they were all digital assets for inspiration, some around the characters, some around the story, some around the scenarios and mechanics. And I was using PowerPoint because it was the easiest way for me to, this was back in 2010, to collect digital assets into something that I could share with my team way back when. And the problem that I saw with PowerPoint for that was that when I was presenting work in progress to people, people tended to see the slides. I was going forwards and backwards because the story wasn't cooked. It was just like random stuff. And people tended to receive a story, receive a presentation, and either say, oh, interesting, being informed, but most of the times they were judging, right? So like there's different types of meetings, informative meetings, maybe it's this one, evaluative meetings when there's someone selling and someone receiving, or someone judging you for some idea that you have. And then there's generative meetings, which are the ones where we're all participating to contribute and generate something new. I saw that I was trying to generate a generative meeting through PowerPoint, and the medium condition also the type of engagement that I had with other people. So I said, there's something missing in the digital realm that feels like a whiteboard, that feels ephemeral, that feels changeable, feels that someone can come in and wipe this thing and do something else, and it's okay. Because PowerPoint tends to be final. It's immaculate, right? So that was the problem that I saw. And then after we launched Mural, the first version of Mural, it's called Murally, and I regret that, but now we're Mural, and we're not Miro, which is formerly real-time board. Our competitors that not very smartly or evilly changed their name to Miro, Mural and Miro. But when we were Murally, we learned that IDEO, the design firm, was using us to collaborate with one of our clients, Steelcase. And then that's where we went in and start studying the orchestrated methods that are typical in design thinking, like customer journey mapping, empathy mapping, and some other stuff, and realized that we needed to not just have this medium that was flexible and had some structure, but also help you coordinate better meetings. So that's where we focused on helping large firms, their clients, IDEO clients, collaborating remotely as if they were in the same room for this high bandwidth type of engagements. So before I get to some of the recommendations that we've stolen from all these teams around the world in making this thing work, I want to reflect back on remote work as something that, again, Andres was also saying that when are we going to call remote work and not have like this segmentation of the type of work? And the thing that I wanted to put in conversation here is like, I don't think that remote work is new, right? And I mean, the salespeople have been on the road forever, right? I mean, I saw the movie The Founder the other day, and the guy was on the phone all the time, like connecting with headquarters and so on. So like salespeople, field salespeople made it work, and it's okay, and work is on the road, right? And they generally, at least in software sales, work from their homes, and that's fine with them. That's a standard. People agree that that's how salespeople should work. They should be close to the customer. And likewise, I would argue that coding remotely from Bali is not new anymore. Right? I mean, it's been happening, it works. It's challenging, but there's lots of people. There's evidence here in this room that coding or even doing Fiverr graphic design is not new anymore. A lot of people are doing it from Bangladesh and so on. And by the way, time out. When was the last time that you talked a lot about a product or service that you were consuming? Because I've been raving about this conference for the last 3 months, right? So like a particular thing is like, side note, congratulations, Igor, because this is one of the things that, I mean, it's like buying a Tesla, I guess, which I don't own yet, but I want to, but I could buy a ticket to Bali and participate here. So, purple cows. Are your products remarkable as this conference? That's a side thought. So, remote work is not new anymore. I mean, this is the Gartner hype cycle for new technology, right? And what I like to think of remote work and collaboration in general is like a social technology, right? It's how we interact as people, and of course there's technology around the tools that we need to use to collaborate, but it's also the mechanics of interactions, how to build trust and many other things. And again, I mean, probably like back in the day when Skype came in and the internet and so forth, and say, hey, I can work from Bali, I can code from Bali, I can use Fiverr to do certain things. And then, of course, Marissa Mayer came in and some others say, no, everybody should be in the same room at the same time. If not, we cannot get things done. Right? And I think that we are now getting into the plateau of productivity that people are feeling more comfortable with remote. There's the legal aspects getting sorted, then there's the tooling getting sorted, Zoom and Slack, making things high standards into, and then Microsoft Teams, of course, and to help people communicate. And then there's specialists like you all already means generating the playbook of how things could be or should be done. But again, people love the old. I mean, people, the safety of the known, right? And people like to be in the same room. It's better together, right? So this is something that it's been in our genes forever, right? I mean, we tend to, for community, it's why Homo sapiens basically survived and thrived, right? Like small groups of people, high trust, high bandwidth, sharing stories, sharing gossip about each other, and through that we know how to engage with people. So it's not easy, it's not natural to be working through screens, to working in another location, in another time zone, or waking up at 6 a.m. when I went to bed at 12 a.m. last night, right? So because of that, is that we as pioneers and we as early adopters and we as people that believe in remote work and believe in the freedom that it can provide, need to be thinking this as a social technology, and need to understand that we are, again, the tech enthusiasts or the visionaries of remote work, and we are now about to cross the chasm, right, into helping the pragmatists and eventually conservatives to jump into the remote work bandwagon and having them feel comfortable about this. But it's not easy to jump the chasm, right? Like the new technology, in this case a social technology called remote work, needs to be easy, right? Needs to be something that everybody, quote unquote, is doing. Needs to be something that, certain things that make it, there's an ROI, perceived ROI, at least through storytelling, that the pragmatists need to be done. Once the pragmatists are in, it's 50% of the world working in this way. So it's our job as a community to turn around and sell to these folks, sell this concept, and acknowledge that it's like that. So from our company, right, and our community, the facilitators of this type of generative meetings that we serve, and we've been serving for a while, we've been working together with them to create this set of best practices and to spread it around the world. And of course, working with our engineers, designers, and product managers to make our particular slice of remote work as great as possible, so that the pragmatists don't say, hey, I want to go back to the room. And instead they say, it's worked as well as being in a room, let's keep on doing it. So that's what we do, right? Like in Mural, we of course have a software, have technology, have features, have infrastructure that is reliant for whatever, high security and compliance. But most importantly, we work together with the people with capes here, with the Jedi masters of remote work, the facilitators, to bring people together through screens most of the time, and be able to feel them comfortable together, designing, innovating, creating the new employee experiences, products, and services into the market, wherever they might be. And we also believe that by having this done digitally, we can also dramatically improve how they work. So not just enable innovation to happen anywhere and not be reliant on the innovation centers or being all together for this thing, but also through orchestrated playbooks of work, helping them not only achieve the same thing they could do in person, but even better digitally. So a lot of my work as a CEO is speaking to large firms, telling them that if they keep on spending all this money training people in design thinking, agile, and these agile transformations and so forth, without embracing the best practices of remote work, they will fail. And they will be wasting all those millions of dollars in training people because they won't be able to practice, right? I mean, by definition, companies of more than 1,000 employees cannot be in the same room at the same time. That's why they became big, because they have a global or somewhat global footprint. So we generally teach people on best practices from the early stages of their journey, or what they should be thinking of when they bring in people through one of these exercises, how to also incorporate best practices of remote work through their journey as new design thinkers, agile people, and so forth. In general, people go to the Stanford D School, go to a workshop for Luma, go to whatever the venue it is. Sometimes it's internal, like with IBM, that they have these design studios, as they call them, and they do different exercises, right? So they practice how to do research and map it out with a customer, an empathy map, or do an experience map or customer journey map, whatever the flavor it is. And then they do it with a pretend case, and then when they advance, they do it with a real case, and so forth. But then they have to go back to real life, and the smell of Sharpies is gone, because they have a person or a couple of people in the team that are not in the same location, and they cannot practice the same mechanics that they learned in those 2, 3, 5 days when they were all together, right? So this generates a problem, and people, in a way, feel disoriented. So something that progressive firms like IBM have done is that they decided that, okay, one of the important things that they need to do is to standardize, and not making them comply with, but making them available, a lot of tools. And the tools that IBM had early on, and this was the CIO group of a software company that had some collaboration tools. They chose Slack, GitHub, Box, Mural, that was the first batch, and then they added some others like InVision and so on, to make them compliant, available, and have a process for each of the people inside their companies to sign up for that and be able to use it. And there's the recommended more popular tools. There's others that need to go through that process. But IT was super progressive in supporting the digital workplace, right? In addition to working with facilities to try to get the physical workplace to also support this type of work. So one recommendation, standardize on whichever set of tools you want to use in advance and teach people how to use this. The other thing is templates, right? So all these methods that they use, people need to practice them over and over. I call these, like sheet music for music. Right, when you start playing an instrument, you need to follow. When you start playing an instrument with other people, you need to follow and listen to each other. Only after you played horribly as a high school rock band, I'm still in that category, you become better jazz improvisers, right? So make sure that people can have these guardrails so that they can follow, and then they'll innovate, they'll change things that adapt for them. So in their financial services, they'll introduce some things with legal and compliance early on and so forth. But this is a way to standardize meetings and make the best practices be available to everybody, and then you can change them. The other thing that we teach people is that they pretend to be remote when they are in person, right? And practice being remote. As I said before, working remotely is not natural. It's an acquired taste, right? It's something that you need to unlearn how to, when someone is in the video call, right, and you shift tabs and you have something else on your screen, and then you forget about that person, you need to remind yourself to address that person and see, hey, do you have any comments? And hey, being on mute, not being on mute, celebrating remotely, all those things are awkward, and we need to learn them and need to practice them. So when you have people in the same location, if you can afford to have the people in the same location, use some time to practice what you've learned in a digital format. Do a little iteration of that exercise all digitally, and go through the pain points that involves with a safety net of worst case scenario, you stand up and go to the room together. And something else that's a beauty of scale and remote is that in most of these large firms, there's programs around innovation catalyst or facilitators that for now, it's like their second job to help out sometimes and be called in to help facilitate a meeting. We saw one of our clients, Kaiser Permanente, already hired a full-time facilitator for this type of workshops. So we believe that in the future, it's not only a core competence to be a great meeting facilitator, because we burn a lot of time in bad meetings, but we also see jobs being created just to facilitate meetings, just to help people be better at imagination work and collaboration. So the nice thing about having people that already have been in this thing and are experienced remote facilitators is that in general, there could be someone available to help you co-facilitate one of the meetings, right? Because you don't need full days of workshops, full days of 400-person conferences. A remote meeting cannot be more than 2 or 3 hours, and there's diminishing returns after the hour, right? So you need to compress as much as possible. So why not raise your hand and have a set of people that can be available for you in your first X amount of meetings. So these are things that we suggest while you're getting started and kind of setting up standards for everybody. Now, there's the situation of when there's pros in this type of work, people that feel super comfortable facilitating inside a room full of people, right, and have been in this for a while. It's really hard for them to go and do facilitation through a screen. They feel the lack of energy, they don't know how to look people in the virtual eye, and they generally want, they need to go back, now this is not working, let's go back to the room. And it's understandable, right? They don't feel, they are feeling vulnerable and they don't want to do that. So some recommendations for the experts in the practice that need to work remotely are, 1, digitize right away if you happen to be in the same location at the same time. We have a little thing called Mural scan that swipes whiteboards, including signals, but also things around them, and turns them into vectors. In Mural, they can then reshuffle. That's cool. There's others, like Post-it Plus also has an app. Mural.co/scan for beta access to the feature. The other thing is avatarize everybody. Try to have people in the same level playing field, even if you're in person. And when it comes to these hybrid situations where there's some people in a room, there's always the guy or the girl, or the gal in the room that if there's like 6 people in a room and then there's a couple remote, and there's a whiteboard in the room, at some moment in time they woke up to the whiteboard and start drawing something. And then the people in the other locations are like, what are you? And then the people like start pointing the camera of the right? That's really a bad experience and generates friction because people are not in the same canvas, in the same virtual space. So something that is happening in the market right now is that this is a Microsoft Surface Hub, 84-inch touchscreen, super responsive, same technology as the iPad, as the iPhone, so you can draw there and feel that it's really nice, no lag perceived. And the nice thing is that, in a way, in this meeting room in Intuit, it became like a safety net for the guy that wants to walk up and whiteboard and doesn't feel comfortable whiteboarding in a smaller device. So it's not needed, right? But it's a nice to have. And the nice thing is that this thing was $24,000 2 or 3 years ago. Now the new version, it's a smaller one. They're launching a new one. It's $7,000, right? And there's 10 brands coming to the market like Sharp, Avocor, Dell, and a few others. So you can imagine these things are going to be compressing in price. Of course, it's hard to imagine one of these in your personal office, right? But if you happen to have a team that is in a co-located space, this should be coming to the market really soon. And in any case, try to have everybody on the same canvas, whatever you choose. The other thing is remote icebreakers, right? So like we do this all the time when we start meetings, but sometimes it's important to do them even before that important meeting, right? Instead of wasting or spending or investing the first 5-10 minutes of the session, maybe you do them earlier in a lunch and learn the week before. And the only thing that you do there is look very basic stuff like, okay, show me a picture of yourself, something that's relevant about you. Whatever the exercise is, we have a bunch that we have coined or used and templatized. So the nice thing is if you have a lot of templates, you can reuse it and not have to think of another remote icebreaker, and we have a community of folks building templates for others. But point being is like unbundle the session, get people comfortable with the virtual space, and then go into the high engagement type session where they need all of their brain power, not focus on the tooling, but focus on the work. The other thing that generally happens with these masters is that they say, well, I have a full 2 days worth of content, 8 hours of content per day. And sometimes I ask them, why? Well, we need to maximize these people that are coming from all over the world, right? I mean, we need to take advantage. And sometimes most of these workshops, they don't need 8 hours or 2 days to get done. They need a few hours. But the thing is, like, given that people fly, need to settle, the jet lag and so forth, they tend to bundle up a lot of work. So what we generally try to tell people is, like, if you want to be in person, we recommend it, of course. But if you need to be in person for every decision or high bandwidth decision that you need to make, you're probably going to be waiting for 2-3 weeks for that slot to be open in the calendar for all the key stakeholders that need to be participating in opinions or decisions into getting this done. So we tell them, why don't you unbundle the workshop, right? I mean, AT&T, they had people go to Atlanta for this type of session, and they had to wait on average 2 weeks to find that spot. It's only 1 day because it's only domestic flights. But then they say, well, let's try it remotely. And in 2 hours, they were able to get the same work done because it was only 2 hours of productive work during that day because of people having to move around, right? So think of unbundling long sessions into shorter ones. And even if they're remote also, think how you can unbundle long sessions into smaller ones. And then something that we've done, and I recommend that you steal some of these ideas, is that similarly to this thing with AT&T, where one of the values that we shown is that the impact they shown is like the saving time. Is like we have a lot of evidence and stories and data that show that these together generate more value, right? By the way, this is another interesting one, which is some people, in the particular case, EY, which you might say, well, I mean, it's not a very progressive company, but they are. Their advisory group. They have all of their innovation centers all digital, so that they don't need to like transcribe and they can have people connect from anywhere else. And sometimes they don't even have someone else, and they still work digital first to get all of the advantage of tech. So the three big things that we talk about when we talk about the impact of remote work and design thinking is that one is like you shrink the amount of time to go to market because of all of these cycles that you have around decision making. The other one is that we did a total economic impact report with Forrester in the IBM case, and this is available in mural.co/impact. And we found, a lot of cost savings in terms of travel, in terms of workshops, in terms of coffee, in terms of hotels, because of being able to get them remote. So it's a nice matrix for you guys to use for other things. They have like some percentages per meeting and meeting participants and so forth. And then, of course, there were some unmeasured results, like, for example, the possibility for everybody in the company not have an excuse to be able to use these methods that they believe are very important. And they also did another economic impact report on the impact of design thinking as a methodology in and across their projects. So we let people free from the innovation room, the project room, and be able to collaborate on this high bandwidth type collaboration wherever they might be. So one thing that we have is, I only brought a few copies in my bag, so if you're super interested and you're a facilitator and you need to have the physical copy, we have bundled a lot of the recommendations into this ebook, a lot of recommendations from people in the community, pioneers of remote work and facilitation remote work. And the other thing is that for you guys, we're also offering a free 90-minute workshop with our services guys. People that are certified Luma instructors and been in SAP and other firms for a while, and also work remotely on best practices on facilitating remote. So if you go here, you can also sign up. I think we're going to be like having a couple batches of 20, 24 people, I think it is. But if you're interested, just go ahead. And you can also download the book for free. So that's me. You can reach me, mariano@mural.co. Yeah, that's it for now. I have some other things if we have more time, but I think we'll switch to questions now.